small things.
Truth, care,
Truth things. She left me roses on the stairs. Surprises let me know she cares. Say so, I will not go. Turn the lights off, carry me home.
Oh, dude, good job.
Harmonies.
All right, let's kick off the show with an opening clip. Other than us singing Blink-182, we're going to be talking about the rules of comedy in business. First rule: there are no rules. That's not true. We are a.
Who is that?
Who is what?
Who is that just came on mic?
Oh, that guy?
Who is that? Is there someone in the studio?
There are no rules.
What the
That guy?
Oh my god, is that Thomas? The guy you were telling me about? The sales bro that's been sneaking in and drinking all our LaCroix?
Yeah, he comes in here at night. He wears Crocs, but he wears the Crocs with the insulation in.
Yeah.
I mean, they're comfortable. He's working from home. What does he need to impress?
He just drinks champagne with those LaCroix. It's
Yeah.
very weird. He called it a mimosa, but I don't think he knows what oranges are.
No, technically he put in a Spindrift, which has 10 calories per serving per can.
Shout out Spindrift.
You ready to start the show?
I'm ready to start the show. I thought it was already started.
Wasn't started. Okay. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Customer Engagement Lab. I am here, Travis Tyler, with Patrick Downs, no nickname today, and we're just going to jump right into the episode today. We're going to be talking about comedy in business. And we are not the purveyors. We are not the arbiters. We are not necessarily the experts, but we're trying. And we've learned a couple things along the way. So you ready to do this?
I'm ready to do it.
How are you doing, though? You feeling good?
How am I doing?
You look fucking great in that floral shirt.
Thank you.
Love it.
I feel very flowery.
Do you like the blue
I feel
LEDs
good.
behind you?
I love the blue LEDs.
Sure.
A nice scenery change
Yeah.
can really spice up your life.
Gotta change it up. All right, here's the opening clip.
All right, show me.
How we feeling out there tonight? Yeah, I am not feeling good.
Shout out to Bo Burnham.
Oh my god.
You're all about to burn him this week, man.
I'm all about it.
So for those that are just
It's
listening,
brave.
to give you context, the TikTok that we just played is it's a woman sitting at her laptop at her desk, and it's the Zoom meeting host trying to pump everyone up, and there's like LED lights, and then she's dancing, and then it's like, how we feeling out there? Yeah. And then the other person's like, yeah, I'm not feeling great. And it's a clip from if you haven't checked it out, go check out Inside by Bo Burnham on Netflix. It's hilarious. It's insightful. It's sad. And it's an emotional roller coaster. And there are parts that I personally had to skip through just because I couldn't do the sock puppet. And that was like your favorite bit, but I just couldn't do it. But everything else I enjoyed.
I love that. I'm the opposite, where I just had to replay everything.
The first time you watch some of his comedy, you really are like, oh, this is different.
Yes. Been following him since he was like 16 on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I think I was like 15.
Mm-hmm.
So I've kind of grown up with Mr. Burnham.
Yeah.
It's been a cool experience.
Yeah, it's like,
I don't think there are any other YouTubers that have gotten to that level. Maybe we will.
You remind me of him a little bit.
Thank you.
It's like this really, this very authentic and I know I already used the word, but insightful brand of comedy that is both self-deprecating but also self-aware at the same time. The reason we're talking about comedy in business today is because the guest that we're going to have on later in this episode is Mark Jung from Dooley. And Dooley is just crushing it with the business comedy. They're having a lot of fun. They're inspiring Patrick and I in what we're doing. And so you and I actually wrote down just a couple of rules sounds dorky, but just some like tips or like some things that we try to incorporate when we're creating content.
We got Mark?
We got Mark.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love Mark.
Dooley's popping off. If you guys
Yeah.
aren't familiar with Dooley, go check it out. It's a really cool software. They're doing a lot of awesome product-led growth. They just got what almost seems like back-to-back rounds of funding.
Never seen that before.
Within like almost a year. And they're just, they're doing great stuff.
I love that. And they're all about comedy. If you've never seen their brand, it's very funny. They did the Hot Ones rip off, but I feel like that's the thing to do in B2B. You take a popular thing and you're like, let's do this here.
Why not?
Yeah.
So one of the first rules that we wrote down was being too safe feels icky.
Expand upon that.
So you kind of like, you have this fear of your joke not landing. So you kind of like toe the line too much on the safe side. And it just feels like a half-hearted attempt at business comedy.
Could you give me an example?
I can't.
Maybe like
Off the top of my head.
somebody asks you to comment on some situation about like workplace dynamics, but there might be that dynamic in your company. So you skirt the line of talking about it and you make it like really vague because you don't want anybody to feel like it's about them or something.
The closest I could come to this is like, just because you're the funniest guy in the office doesn't mean that you're actually good at comedy or that you are actually like comedic. And I think people don't often realize, they're like, I'm the jokey guy. And it's like, yeah, but are you actually like really funny outside of work too? And like, are you doing anything in comedy? Like, are you doing improv? Are you doing stand up? Well, those are people that do it for a living. So there's a big difference, I think. And like the moment I think of is like when you're laughing at a boss's joke because you feel like you kind of have to. That's the like, oh, you.
As a recently promoted manager, I'm going to think about that
Every time somebody laughs at your joke.
Second of every day. Not even when they're laughing, just constantly. I don't know if that's legit either.
So our kind of like tip that we follow is like, don't feel like you need to be too safe. Like, just don't do it then. Like if you, like, that's what I think you and I do is like, we don't. If I get that icky feeling when I'm watching a clip that we do, and I'm like, oh,
Got it. Yeah.
I'm like, no, that's not going to be the clip that we use.
I think it comes down to also picking your topics.
True.
There's some topics, just don't do it.
I think pick the topics that are just naturally interesting to you, right? Like I was listening to Tom Segura, and so Tom was interviewing Nate Bargatze. I don't know if you've seen his special on Netflix, and they were talking about because like Tom is like a notoriously like very dirty comic, and Nate is a cleaner comic. I mean, Nate Bargatze still talks about like death and stuff like that. Like it's not just like, airline peanuts. What's the deal? It's other stuff too. But they were kind of talking about like, well, have you ever wanted to do more of the like dark comedy? And Nate's like, it just doesn't feel like me. And he's like, I talk about the stuff that I like to talk about that is in line with who I am. You're trying to be funny outside of like who you actually are. I think you're going to get that icky feeling, whether it's being too safe or it's being too risky.
Yeah. I think sometimes people think to be funny, you have to tell jokes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't tell jokes. I just say things. I think people mistake comedy for telling jokes. They're two different things.
Agreed. I can tell you that to this day, like, if you were to ask my fiance who's been to, I don't know, 25 improv shows that I've done, she'd be like, the funniest moment was when you weren't trying to be funny. You made a mistake on stage and you were totally convinced you were right, but you were actually dead wrong, and everybody knew you were wrong except for you. And that was the funniest like moment in your comedy career. And I was like, damn.
I think we call that dramatic irony, huh?
I think we do.
Yes, my English degree finally paid off.
The next one we wrote down was don't overdo it. The rule of 3 is usually a safe bet. Otherwise it gets too hacky and becomes kind of like popcorn comedy. So basically the rule of 3 is like, if I say something that's like hyperbolic and then Patrick comes in and like one ups it with like an even crazier idea, and then I'll come in with a third one, and then we'll kind of end it there. We don't need to keep, like, sometimes it is funny to just like keep rambling, but usually you can just do the 3 and then that's pretty good. And you'll see that in TikTok sketches as well. Well, they'll do like the same joke but kind of level it up 3 times, and then on that third one it really lands and hits, and then it's done.
You see that almost everywhere naturally, and in business, like popcorn pricing, where you have small, medium, large.
Oh yeah.
You're going to buy the medium because of the way they've set up the structure of the pricing.
That's very true.
Emails, the best way to write a subject line is with 3 things separated by commas.
I was reading something from the Morning Brew where they were, I think it was the Morning Brew. Maybe it was Freakonomics.
Sorry, Morning Brew and Freakonomics.
Can't remember. But they basically, if you've ever been to a restaurant and like been like, oh, I'm going to order some wine, and you look at the wine list, they did a study of like 100 different restaurants, I think in Europe, to basically see. A lot of times people are like, well, if I order the cheapest wine, it's like the shittiest wine, it's not going to taste good.
Mm.
But I also don't want to break the bank and buy like the most expensive one. So I'll buy like the mid-level one, right? Kind of like what you were talking about, this popcorn pricing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, they like upsell that mid-level one for like way more than it's actually worth. So let's say you're looking at a glass that's $11, a glass that's $14, or a glass that's $20. You're better off just going with the $11 one, the cheapest one, if you're trying to save money. If you're really like
the 14 though, probably.
Say again.
Most people would buy the 14.
Most people would buy the 14, but fun fact is like that 14 is actually only worth like 8, but they just increase the price on it because that's what most psychologically people are gonna do. So they want to get the most money for the one that's bought the most.
I feel like we could get Margot back for this segment. Wine talk.
We should. Another one that we wrote here, the next one was, take an improv comedy class to learn what's Gucci and what's not Gucci when it comes to comedy.
Like saying the word Gucci. It's not Gucci. Did I write that?
I don't know.
I think I might have. Sometimes I'll write stuff and I'll go back and read it and be like, who the hell wrote this? This is terrible.
The fourth one we have is end it on a big moment. You need to build to it. Have kind of a setup punch, you know, it's kind of, but starting slow is something that, a lot of good comedians do. They consider their comedy like a slow burn, and they don't need to come out like swinging right out of the gate, like huge, loud, over the top jokes. Like you can work your way to it. Then the last one we wrote here is knowing how to take a shit on the scene to end it when it goes too far.
I love that.
You need to know the body language and know how to end it. So sometimes if you can sense that you're going back to the rule of threes, if that third one, that ending on that big moment is like, all right, we got to cut here. In improv, it's called like taking a shit on the stage. I don't know. I think there's probably a better word for it, but basically like you just come in and you end it with something that like ends the scene. Like, oh, and then the world exploded and everyone died. The end.
Bulldozer came through the wall. And everybody ran away.
Yeah. The police arrested everyone at the party.
Yeah.
Ended.
The Kool-Aid Man showed up.
The next thing I wanted to talk with you about was a post from Bilal. He posted, can we pause for half a sec and respect the game of Michael Herbert's? Talk about scroll-stopping tagline that drew me in. I literally see tens of thousands of profile views and rarely stop. But Michael had me slam the brakes. This is exactly how to show personality, character, and wit in your messaging. Well played, sir. So for those that are just listening, Michael Herbert's is in his LinkedIn profile picture. He is holding a carrot, a mid-sized carrot, in his ear. And that's it. And he's like leaning to the side with a sad, frowny face. And then his tagline is underneath his name says, "Mummy, why has that man got a carrot in his ear hole? Ignore him, darling. He's trying to be different. Attract prospects instead of hunting them down. Step 1, equals stand out. Step 2, engage. Step 3, talk them out of buying."
I've seen this guy.
I told him we were going to be talking about this, and he goes, great.
You told Michael?
I messaged him and said, hey, man, I really like your carrot picture and your description. I'm going to be talking about it on my podcast. And he was like, great.
When I first saw that, I instantly wrote him off. Sorry, Michael. I was like, this guy's insane. What?
I mean,
why?
Step 3 is talk them out of buying.
Oh, he's from England. I was like, what is going on with the vibe of this guy? It's just...
What do you mean by that? It sounds like you just took a big old dump on British culture and humor.
No. It's just different. Like, look at the British Office versus the U.S. Office, right?
I never watched it.
It's just a different thing. Like, they almost use anti-humor, which I actually really like. But I saw this and I was like, what is this guy doing? But it makes so much more sense. It's got that European vibe, especially the mummy.
What is the European vibe?
Cringe. It's serious. Cringe comedy is huge. More absurdist comedy. I feel like most American comedy, at least in the popular culture, is like very literal and not that surreal. And like European stuff is more surreal. Like artistic stuff is more in the mainstream, like art house cinema and comedy.
All right. Next up is Mark Jung from Dooley, and I love you.
Love you too. Love you, Mark.
Everybody, welcome to the second half of the show. If you're still here, thank goodness. If you're drunk, congratulations. If you're sober, I'm proud of you. And we have an amazing guest for the second half of the show. Patrick, Travis, let's put our hands together for Mark from Dooley. Yay!
I don't think I've ever had a round of applause to start a podcast, so great way to get things off.
I think I need to throw some attire at him.
Forgot my top
we'll do that
hat.
in post, bro. Don't even worry about it.
Oh, that's funny.
My first question right out of the gate, do you pronounce your last name like the famous psychologist or like a
Yes.
stupid American person would?
Yes, so German, and it is in fact Jung. So well done, well done. You get a golf clap
I actually
for that.
didn't even say your last name. I was gonna go with Mark Jung.
No, I just kept it Jung, but I do appreciate the secret umlaut you put on there. Man.
All right. To kick off the show, I'm going to play a video clip that I actually just saw for the first time this week. It comes from one of your account executives, Ryan Scalera. And I think he dropped this like a while ago, but he reposted it. And if anybody that's listening and isn't sure what Dooley is or what Dooley does, I think this will help give a little bit of context as to what it is. All right.
Okay.
Can you guys see my screen all right?
We
Yes.
can.
But how about after I get it done, okay?
Okay, then.
All right.
3 hours later.
Give a new sales training again? Ugh, not this guy. Here we go. I see what's happening here. You're faced with new sales training, but it's strange. You don't even...
I seem to pause. He actually has a really good voice.
Yes. So if you don't know Ryan, he actually comes from a background of basically being almost like a professional musician, and everything he records is like legitimately good. So kudos to Ryan, one of my most favorite creative people rocking it on the sales side. So yeah, he's great.
I feel like this is like every marketing leader's dream is to have an AE who loves to get this creative, or a nightmare, depending on the company.
Didn't know how to sell. It's adorable. Well, it's nice to see that sales guys never change. Open your Trello, let's begin. Yes, it's sales enablement. Settle in. I know it's a lot to still go through, but I'm here to sales enable you. What can I say except you're welcome for the Ford and on QBR. Anyway, I know you're welcome for 500 competitor flashcards. Anyway, I know you're welcome. Well, come to think of it, guys, really, I could go on and on. Could explain every sales phenomenon. Scripts that I wrote for the training we bought, even though knowing I've never sold squat. Look at these charts from the back to the front. Don't complain about losing the end of the month. Here is the lesson. Now, what is your takeaway? Form into teams so we can do a breakaway. The trainings I build are the best, but look in the crowd, you all just seem stressed. Pick up your pamphlets, we have much to do. I'll sit here and preach like I'm better than you. What can I say?
Oh man. So for those that are just listening, I hope that you're enjoying Ryan Scalera. He's an account executive over at Dooley, doing his rendition of the beloved Moana song. But yeah, I don't know if that necessarily explains exactly what Dooley does. We'll get into that a little bit later. But y'all are the kings and queens of comedy content in the B2B space, which is so hard to do. Patrick and I struggled to do it. Many others attempt and fail. But if anybody is listening, go check out Dooley immediately. Start following them on LinkedIn. But yeah, I think that's a good kind of flavor for what you guys do. And I think one of the posts that you made is what I want to talk about next.
All right, I don't even know which one this is. So it was fun for me. It's like guess what's happening.
This is something that is like become one of my mottos, and I say it on the show all the time. And I've totally stolen it from you. But basically, a marketing lesson I wish I knew sooner. You posted this about 2 months ago. Create something 100 people will love, not something thousands of people kind of like. When you build for everyone, you build for no one. Don't make that mistake with your brand. People want to see the real you. Drop the corporate you. Same goes for brands. Let's all get real. Um, yeah, man. So that's like my new motto, and I live and die by that now. And I'm pushing everybody at my own company to adopt this mindset. You want to dive a little bit deeper and talk about it with us?
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, first, love to hear it. And second is I first came across this concept years ago through someone called Kevin Kelly. He wrote an essay called Thousand True Fans. And it was essentially breaking down this notion that had become, I think, like really status quo. Like, we have to have such a large audience or total addressable market. Like, what about these 8 segments? And it was challenging that conventional wisdom of when you try to do everything for everyone, you really appeal to no one. And I thought that when you find a niche in a space of a business you're starting, a startup, whatever it might be, like even coming into a current company, too many marketers fall prey to try to appeal to too many different audiences. And what happens is you end up being like that lukewarm chicken at a wedding. You know what I mean? Like that dinner that you show up to, you probably paid like, I don't know, $200 a head to come in, and you sit down, you get like green beans and like some medium chicken that's like so forgettable. And no one's talking about that meal after they leave that wedding. So instead, what if you were to focus on just delighting 100 people and turning those into raving fans? What would that look like? Would that be different? And when I started thinking about that from the marketing lens, it's something that I remind myself every morning when I get up, like, don't fall prey to, hey, let's make something safe enough that 1,000 people will be like, yeah, it's okay. Make something just so freaking great that 100 people will be like the rallying cry for your brand. And if you can do that, honestly, like virality and word of mouth is really how you kind of scale early days. So I'm just big believer of that philosophy. Don't be the bland banquet chicken that many people are.
What's an example of something that you've made with that in mind?
Yeah. So give you an example. When I first joined Dooley, like employee number 7 at the time, first marketer coming in at this point, we had some previous marketing, and we were looking for creative ways to build engagement in a sales community, right? And a big part of that was, how do you compete with the players like Sales Hacker and Gong, who have massive teams, huge budgets, going super long form and creating content? And we were like, hey, sales looks like a stressful job. How are people relieving that stress? Well, they're going to outlets like Sales Humor. Okay, is there a niche that we could tap into there? So instead, we started building out this sales humor motion where we basically built out like a meme acquisition, like a meme based content and some early just like free partnerships with sales humor. And that led us down to running Fire Talks, our hot sauce sales show. And now, flash forward, we're launching NFTs. We're working on our own cryptocurrency. Like, we've done, you name it, like wild, wild things that most marketing teams be like, no, don't do it. And the reason has been, Chris, our CEO, and Justin, our co founder, had built this culture of building something that's going to be a movement and having fun with it and being playful and really just like challenging the status quo to try to build something that reflected the ethos of their company, which we're trying to be this product led movement by sales and for sales. And you don't do that with 20-page white papers that no one cares about, right? You need to do it in a way that's like meaningful for the audience. So those are kind of the two ones that the audience may be familiar with if they've checked out Dooley content, in the last year or so.
That leads me beautifully into the next post that you made. This one is also from about 2 months ago. Let me share my screen here. for those that are just listening. It's Mark wrote them. Your marketing is not professional enough for LinkedIn. I would stop. It hurts your brand. Me, sunglasses emoji, creates more. Music videos, paintings, TikToks, memes, skits. 2 months later, wow, you raised another 20 million. How did you grow the brand? Me, pointing upward emoji. People buy from people. Have some fun with it. I think I also saw I think it was your CEO, or maybe it was you, Mark, where they talked about like, nobody's going to take you seriously if you go this route. And I know that people listening are like, man, I would love to like do sales humor. I would love to, inject some real creativity and personality into what we do, but we got to play it safe because of the space we're in. Or so how do you guys bridge that? How do you approach that? Like, how do you have those conversations internally? And what would you say to those people who are maybe afraid to do the goofy, wacky, funny, interesting, outlandish stuff that y'all are doing?
So I'm a big believer that a shift is happening in SaaS. And I think the smart companies have already started to make this transition. What I mean is that real SaaS companies that are going to become ingrained in the day-to-day life of their audience and their buyers are actually building up media arms within their companies or having some type of media arm that's a sister company. When you look at some of the marquee players like HubSpot, there's a reason why they acquired the Hustles newsletter back in February of this year. When you look at others in the space who are making similar waves, and even what we started doing at Dually, it's because through the pandemic and through kind of what's happened, there's been a massive opportunity for brands to be able to connect to their audience in a closer way than there ever has been before, right? We've moved to this virtual world and everyone's trying to do the same playbook, virtual summits, virtual whatever, diminishing returns. The smart brands are capitalizing on it and they're finding ways like I think what you've done beautifully with the show of having PandaDocs content become part of day to day in a similar way to people in SaaS and how they trust TechCrunch or whatever it might be. And because of this shift, I think that brands can have a little bit more latitude in terms of what they do, especially if they can start to build it out with this thought process of it being a media arm, maybe not a direct extension of their company if they're in a really safe space. But what I would say is I came from a really, call it corporate background of selling to CHROs, like chief human resource officers in big banks, right? So like we were selling to TD Bank, Scotia Bank, Bank of Montreal, like basically
those are the most like scared people to sell to. Like they're so much on the line. Like you can't mess with people's money and you can't be silly.
So that's what I thought. Right. When I was in that role, I was like, hey, we got to be buttoned up. Everything has to be really professional. And what I came to learn from that was even when we were selling to C-level people at some of the biggest like publicly traded companies in the world, what was engaging with them was the stuff that was like person to person, right? It wasn't the like, hey, here's this really formal 15-page research doc that'd be amazing for your team. It was the like, hey, we just catered like a hot dog party for you and your leadership team at your offsite, and then sent you a fun note and left you a voicemail the day after. That was what moved the needle with procurement and with security and with IT. And what I quickly realized was this notion that we have that like you can't cross these lines because we're in a serious industry. There are ways to do it that don't put you up to the type of a risk that I think people are afraid to accept. And I think a good way to test this is through the personal brands of the people at your company, right? Too often, people's personal brands have been muzzled where companies will say, hey, I saw you creating this content on LinkedIn. I don't want you to do it because it might offend one of our customers. Try to take something, if you're worried about it, test it on your personal channel, have some teams test it, see what the feedback is like. And then if you start to see success, roll more and more of that out at the company level. But my learnings personally have been know your audience, right? If you're selling into like a space where it doesn't work, you've tried it before, there's probably some angle you can take to at least be unique and creative that's not going to be offensive. But I'm a big fan of just like pushing the boundaries, finding that line and being different because, so many people are in the sea of SaaS sans serif, blue, same playbook, all the content blends in. It's not memorable, right? Like find a different path and people will remember you.
I love that. I have a TikTok I'm going to show you, and it's a hot take because I think it kind of goes a little bit against um, our industry and our role. So I'm really interested to see what both of you think of this one. Let me pull it up real quick.
It's Ryan Reynolds.
This is not the Ryan
Damn
Reynolds
it.
one.
Oh boy.
Who makes most of my income doing social media marketing and digital strategy. Here are my morning thoughts. Social media is dying, and therefore the profession and the employment and the career path of social media marketing is dying alongside of it. I've accepted this fate, and here's why. Capitalism is manifesting in the digital world in a very similar way that it manifests and shows up in the physical world. When it comes to brands and businesses and corporations interacting online, very little is built sustainably and very little is built to last. It's all about instant gratification and instant conversion. It's all paid promotion, okay? They're not building trust. They're not building an organic audience. They're not building like authenticity. They're not building any sort of authority. They're just paying their way onto your screen. They're treating consumers as if they're like dumb. Like, oh, nothing to see here, just a paid promotion for a brand you've never heard of. Go ahead, trust us. Consumers are smart. Consumers are sick of that. So consumers really aren't interacting with business accounts. Needs a part two. As a human being.
So I know I set that TikTok up saying it goes against what we're saying, but actually now that I'm listening to it again, I think it takes a turn there because it starts out saying like social media marketing is dying, but I think what she might be referring to is paid social media marketing. And instead of what Dooley's doing, what Panadoc is trying to do, what a lot of, I think, smarter, more agile companies are trying to do, which is create and 2 years ago it was product-led growth. Everything's product-led growth. And I saw I think it was the CMO of HubSpot post last week saying it's all about community-led growth. Community, organic community, building a real community of people. And I think the reason I love interacting with the Dooley account, the Chili Piper account on LinkedIn and on other social media is because like I know the person usually who's managing that account, and I know they're a real person and they're a funny person and a good person. But yeah, what do the two of you think about her morning hot coffee take?
All right. Well, I'll give the quick lay of the land, and then Patrick, I want to get your take. I think still fundamentally most B2B marketing metrics are broken and they incentivize the wrong behavior. When you look at the classic marketing qualified lead MQL metric, we got to hit our leads. You incentivize your teams to do unsustainable things that hit a checkbox that don't actually lead you to invest in the right long-term platforms and plays. Give you an example. Instead of building a community, a podcast, growing a following, creating organic content, which is harder to measure, right? Like attribution is the thing that all marketers are tasked with. There's a reason why there's a multi-billion-dollar industry for MarTech that helps with attribution and data. It's so marketers can justify their budget and their existence and continue to grow. The problem with that is you get marketers who are forced to run, right, PPC on LinkedIn, driving like ebook downloads where the conversion is like 0.5%. And it's like, oh, amazing, we crushed our 50K MQL lead goal. But did you build an audience? Did you invest in the way that people through common sense consume content? Have you become a household name? Or did you just hit an arbitrary quota that aren't helping with your long-term vision, your revenue goals, your brand? I kind of look at it as an iceberg, and 10% of the attribution goes to brand, but 90% of the work to get there is based on the things that are technically unsustainable and hard to drive attribution towards. So I think it just led to this shift in the marketing landscape where it's hard for marketers to invest in the right things. And until leadership kind of clue in and accept the fact that you do need to invest there, it's going to be that same standard. Oh, we're 30% behind our targets coming up on Q3. Let's up the PPC play and let's hit those KPIs so that, when I go into my SLT meeting, it's like high fives, we made it, even though they know that it's not going to transition to the long-term outcome. So that's kind of my take one, but over to you, Patrick. I know that you're a passionate player in this space too.
Yeah, and I'm not in marketing, so everything I say, take with a grain of salt. But I feel like that argument potentially also came from someone not marketing, because everyone that I've talked to that's a social media marketing person or has a title like that, they don't handle paid advertising. Like there's another section of marketing that handles that, usually like in demand gen or like an advertising marketing manager or something. So like I'm a little confused by the take in general. And like usually when you're even looking at paid, a lot of it is done through retargeting, right? So like it's usually a brand you would know anyway. So I guess I'm a little confused by the take in general, but I think social media is huge right now for brands. I mean, look at B2C, like Wendy's is killing it. Like all these like fast food chains got on after Wendy's because they're like, they paid some 22-year-old to be weird, or they paid some 50-year-old to pretend to be a 22-year-old and be weird, whatever it is, right? It's catching on. Like I see more Instagram posts that are just screenshots of Wendy's than I see anything. And like, how much has that done for Wendy's brand? It's probably kept them relevant. So like, I think if anything, this is going to be a job that becomes more and more important over time.
Yeah, and I think it shifted, honestly. Like the way things are progressing, at least as I see it, whoever becomes part of that regular day-to-day mind share is going to win the hearts and minds of the audience. When you look at your phone, 90% of screen time goes to the people on your front apps, right? Anything beyond page one slips past down to like 10% usage. It's the same for brands, right? And I think often social has been in the spot of you hire the 22-year-old intern, push some content from the company page, but no, like it's transitioning to the people in the company because people want to connect with people, right? Not brands. I always think of like the brand handle as like the ticker. And this was Dave Gearhart's first notion that I love. It's like you still got to have that stuff going, but it's like the people that become the heart of the company. And that's what people rally behind. And then when people are seeing the brand content, they know the people behind it. And that's what makes them want to engage. I see Series F companies that have less engagement than 10-person startups because they still haven't transitioned there. So I see it going the other way. And I think even paid is going to become more of a form of content distribution rather than hitting MQL goals to make sure that you have the penetration you need to become part of that first screen.
That's an interesting like notion to kind of like think about where paid advertising is going to be in 5 to 10 to 15 years. I have a good ad to show you. And this does involve Ryan Reynolds. So buckle up, my friend.
All right.
What if I just took a seatbelt out of nowhere? Oh, would that be like?
I would have loved
I mean, fine. What? I should have prepped.
I would have been like, holy shit, man. Well, I thought you were hanging out at your condo. Where'd you get
My house is a car.
You're like that dude I saw on TikTok who like put a green screen behind him and he's riding a dirt bike. Did you see that one?
Oh man.
Yeah. What are you talking about? We need to play that.
Yeah, he was pretending to be on a Zoom call, like, and he put his green screen up behind him, like hanging out, you know, like on a Zoom call with his coworkers. Anyway, maybe we'll find that for next week. But this is what I've got for this week. So one of my coworkers sent me this. It's on Ad Age, a popular advertising website that talks about good ads. And I had heard of aviation gin, but now I really have after this ad. And so it's Ryan Reynolds makes a vasectomy cocktail for Father's Day. And for those that are just listening, Ryan Reynolds is in a bar, or he's like in a home bar cooking up a cocktail. And then let me make sure my sound sharing is on.
It's Father's Day.
Can you guys hear it?
But if you don't mind, we're gonna celebrate with the mother of all cocktails, the vasectomy. Let me show you how to make it. First, fill a tall glass with ice, the way children fill our lives with so much joy. Next, pour 1 ounce of cranberry juice, sweet, just like their little smiles. Then, pour 3 ounces of tonic, so bubbly. Then, pour 3 ounces of tonic, so bubbly, just like I feel every day I wake up after a long, full night's sleep. Now, add a dash of lemon juice. Fresh if you have a few minutes to squeeze one, or store-bought if the little ones have you running around a bit today, the little scamps. Finally, we're gonna add 1.5 ounces of Aviation American Gin, the world's highest rated gin for the world's highest rated job. Dad. Finally, we're gonna add 1.5 ounces of Aviation American Gin. Stir. And then we're going to garnish with a little slice of sunshine. Now that is as refreshing as fatherhood. Well, something I call the vasectomy for no reason at all. Happy Father's Day, everyone. When people see this, they're gonna be like, has he ever been outside?
Oh man.
Yeah. What are the reactions? What do you guys think?
Ryan Reynolds is a genius. There's a reason he started the marketing agency. Full stop.
I didn't know he had a marketing agency. That's completely news to me. I just know him from Deadpool, man, and like all the other movies he's been in that I love.
That was a perfect ad. That was one of the most perfect pieces of advertising I've ever seen. Like every 2 to 3 seconds, there was a joke, which is crazy. Like the volume of humor, I think, is what made it. Because like you didn't even get a second to recover from the last joke before there was another one. That was incredible.
Yeah, I feel like good advertising is like good copy. It's written in a way that gets you from one sentence to the next. And I think that too often marketers get hung up with the rules in the same way they do punctuation. Like I purposely do not hyphenate hyphenated words because it doesn't match our brand. I do not use a semicolon when a period will do. Often, sometimes a sentence is 3 words in a period because it's short, it's tight, it gets you the next sentence. And I think good ads need to do the same. Like if you haven't seen the ad that he did for Match.com, it was a play of the devil meeting 2021 and getting matched and their year together. And it's a hilarious story because it ties back to like the social and emotional levers that people have experienced in a way that is then contextualized in the same format that Marvel has turned into amazing movies. It has the right amount of humor, it has short, witty dialogue, it usually has inside jokes, and it keeps action and pace going in a way that I think B2B brands can do too. Like Marvel doesn't offend people, right? Marvel does not offend people. Think of your brand like you're trying to make a Marvel movie and inject that same level of humor and connection and wit to it. And I think everyone would be better served. So,
Yo, I love that, man. That is so true. Patrick and I have talked about this a little bit, but there was somebody that approached him and was like, "I don't get why you guys are doing a comedy podcast or something like that." What was it? What was the
Canuck
concept?
isn't funny. Why are you trying to be funny? We're not funny. That was the statement.
I've been there. Yeah. I mean, what's going to happen is when you're creating something that 100 people love, 1,000 people love, 100,000 people love, it's going to mean that there's going to be a percentage of people that do not like it. And there are some people and some brands that will not accept that and will continue to make gray, banquet grade chicken marketing for the rest of their lives. But there are others that will accept the fact that in order to do something, polarizing can be good because it means you're drawing strong opinions and you do not want to be all things to everyone. In order to say, hey, draw the line at what you don't want your brand to be, think of what you do want your brand to be, and double down on all the things that get you there, even if that does happen. And I know it's hard, and I've dealt with it myself, and I'm sure you're all dealing with it. But I think we cheers to hanging in there and taking the road less traveled. So I feel for you all.
I'm just glad we get to host this show together. I'm so glad we got people like Mark on it too. This is a fun episode. Thanks for coming on, Mark.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, this has been great. I appreciate you all, and I'm down for whatever. So anytime. And I would just say, final shout out to you both. I get invited on a lot of podcasts, and with how crazy life has been, I don't do them all. And when Patrick and Travis pitched me, there was a video of Travis drawing my face. And granted, the drawing was worse than my 5-year-old nephew's, but that's what caught my attention. It was amazing. And the thought of like having that and that experience in that moment. Sam McKenna, if you don't follow Sam McKenna, her go-to saying, "Show me you know me," used to be the head of sales at LinkedIn. It's one of the true things that I picked up from her. Be different, be short, be creative. That's how you win at marketing. I think you guys are doing a great job there. You're paving the way. So I appreciate you both as humans and as brand marketers and as all the other things that we know and got to learn about. So just shout out to you all. Keep doing what you're doing, and I'm here for you.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Hey, Patrick, can you hit the stop record button?
Thanks for hanging out with us today on the Customer Engagement Lab. For more of Travis and Patrick's chaotic energy, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast player. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, you would make our hearts smile if you left a super quick rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the show deserves. It'll take you 2 seconds, I promise. Till next time.